Hi, everyone. Thank you all for tuning back in. It's Trade with Ellie, all things trade and travel related. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do so, okay? Thank you so much for subscribing. I appreciate the support, right? Today, I want to cover something travel related. So, yesterday, I posted up a video about travel insurance and the importance of travel insurance. Today I want to cover some other information about travel insurance. I want to travel I want to cover specifically, three travel insurances. So I know a lot of people typically book through Expedia, Priceline, Kayak. So I'm going to go over the travel insurance that they have there so you kind of have an idea of what to look for in different information. So what I said was, travel insurance is super, super important, especially now with coronavirus, right? You need to see if you're going to be having coverage for it or not, and you need to know what your insurance covers. Now, travel insurance doesn't cost too much. What I did was I picked a few different um, flights, right, all about a week span, just so that you can see what the cost of travel insurance actually comes out to. And a lot of it, is about $20, right? It's about $20 for the added coverage, right? As you can see here, 24.87 for about a week trip. So if you added more days, yes, it might cost more, but remember, this is not that bad, right? In the event something happens, $24 for about a week or less is not bad at all. And so from the minute that you book your travel insurance until, the day you return from your flight, that's actually what's covered. So I did speak about, you can add it on whenever you want, but understand if you book it today and something happens tomorrow and your flight gets bumped or it gets canceled, whatever the case is, you can use your travel insurance to cover or to help fix that or to fund you for any issues that you face, right? Any disruption in your trip. So I've booked trips before where they actually canceled my flights, after a couple of weeks of having it. And then the days that I wanted to leave or needed to leave were unavailable. So it's like this was a huge disruption to my trip because I was going to multiple different places, right? That's an issue. That's a major issue that at the end was crazy, but that's a story for a whole other day. But that was something that was major and was actually continuous even up until the day that that flight actually was supposed to happen. So the travel insurance is very necessary for that. So look, it's about $24. So Expedia, right? They're connected right now to Travel Guard. So if you're booking through Expedia and you're just selecting, yes, I want this travel insurance coverage, it's going to bring you out to Travel Guard, right? So they already have the advisory right here, right? Coronavirus advisory. So they're not even trying to shy away. They're not trying to pretend whether they cover it or not, right? So you're going to go through this and you should read what's entailed, what's covered, right? Right now, they're letting travelers should consult with the World Health Organization and CDC, right, website about corona outbreaks, right? So one, they want you to know that, okay, we know that the virus is everywhere, everyone's kind of dealing with this. So it's an issue on a large scale. So the fact that everyone is already aware of the virus, right, this can change how or what your travel protection can cover when it comes to COVID, right? So right now, on March 11, 2020, right, who declared COVID-19 a pandemic? Therefore, any losses for trip cancellation, trip interruption, and or trip delay caused by or resulting from quarantine due to COVID-19 is considered unforeseen. Is not considered unforeseen, right? Because we already know what the effects are, the possibilities, right? So they're saying that this is not unforeseen and therefore it is not covered, right? Once again, any losses for trip cancellation, trip interruption, trip delay caused by or resulting from quarantine due to COVID is not going to be covered under Travel Guard. So this is really key because this can happen at any moment, any time. And in a sense, right, we're getting travel protection to also protect us from that. So this is crazy. Now, however, this does not affect any medical benefits available under the insurance policy. If you contract COVID-19 prior to leaving for your trip, you would be covered for trip cancellation, right? So if you book a trip and it's a week from now, God forbid, you get sick, you get COVID or whatever the case is, and you cannot go on this trip, it will cover that, right? It will cover that trip. Now, if you have confirmed and documented diagnosis and or medically unable to travel at the time of your trip, you supposed to be leaving on your trip due to COVID, you can contract COVID-19 while covered. If you contract COVID-19 while on your trip, you would be covered, right? But you have to have confirmed documentation. So even though this first verbiage here in the front is letting you know, okay, look, we know normally travel protection covers trip cancellation, interruption, delays, right? But if any of those are happening due to something regarding to COVID, we're not responsible for that because this is something that's almost unexpected and something that's happening everywhere. And you're aware of COVID. You're aware of what the potentials could be. And this on such a grand scale that they don't even want to be responsible of that because anything and everything can happen and has been happening, right? Since about March 11th. So they're saying, you know what, this is too much of a liability. We're not covering that. However, if you have coverage, right? If you get travel insurance today, your trip is a week from now, and prior to that, you have to cancel because you have COVID, you contracted COVID, you get it on the trip, and you have medical expenses that needs to be covered. Oh, we'll cover that. But if the trip itself is delayed or anything due to COVID, right? That's like on a grand scale, that's not gonna your coverage is not going to be protecting that, right? At that point, it sounds like you have to take it up with the airline. So, making sure that you're reading through this and really understanding the verbiage is super important. If you're unsure, call them up and ask them like, hey, does that mean this? Right? If this happens, does that cover? Especially if you're going through something, call and ask hypothetical questions, right? Or just call and just let them know what's happening. So that way you can find out, okay, am I going to get this coverage? Am I going to be able to get reimbursed? Whatever the case is. So these are frequently asked questions that they have in the bottom. Make sure that you read this and you're aware. So make sure you're reading all this information, right? And so that's super important when it comes to COVID. And then you just want to go in and just see, what is actually being covered on this, right? If you're an individual, right, it's different from if it's a corporation. But for the most part, the information is pretty basic and laid out, right? For medical emergency, right? This is all that's being covered here, right? Knowing if you can get evacuated, right? This is important, especially when you're traveling outside the US to another country where maybe something ends up going down and you actually need to leave the country, right? If you have a US passport and you've contacted the embassy, they know you're there, or if you get sick and you're in an emergency, you need to be flown out, like this can be covered, right? So understand what's being covered. Travel assistance, right? If you need to rebook your flight, if you need to rebook hotel, lost luggage, guaranteed hotel check-in, emergency return travel arrangements, emergency cash transfer assistance, right? These are things that are going to be covered as part of your plan. So know that you do have access to someone through this company to call and to help you through some of this information and some of these things that may happen. So definitely be aware of that, because anything that can or happen, right? You can go on a trip and let's say something happens and you bought tickets for something, right? Right here, this says event ticketing. You could have bought tickets to an event and maybe something happened and you missed it, and now you're not going to be able to get a refund. You can contact your travel insurance and get reimbursed, right? This is what you paid for. That those $20 are going to go a long way. Just know what's being covered and make sure that you go in and follow that claim. So now what I want us to do is go ahead and check out, what the insurance coverage is for when it comes to Priceline, right? Priceline is using a different company. Priceline is using Alliance, right? Global Assistance. So right here, right, they're letting you know the important coverage limitations, COVID-19. So let's go ahead and just let's read that up, right? This is super important. So US coverage alert, COVID-19, right? So we know it's evolving pandemic, okay, with continued spreads, right? We're aware, right? We're aware of all this information. So make sure that you're reading this because they're gonna let you know what you can cover or not. Temporary claim accommodations for a temporary period in response with the ongoing public health and travel crisis, right? We're not otherwise covered under your plan. We are currently accommodating claims, right? So this is things that normally wouldn't be covered, but they've added this, right? For plans that include the new epidemic coverage endorsement, new covered reasons have been added for certain specific epidemic related situations, right? So, example, emergency medical care for an insured who becomes ill with COVID while on their trip, if your plan includes the emergency medical care benefit. So, therefore, make sure your plan includes emergency medical care benefit, right? For trip cancellation and trip interruption, if an insured or that insured's traveling companion or family member becomes ill with COVID-19, either before or during the insured's trip, if your plan includes trip cancellation or trip interruption benefits, will apply, right? So they're letting you know here what is being included, what is not being included. And so this is super important to know, right? Trip cancellation coverage up to 100% of your trip costs, right? 10,000 max. Trip interruption coverage, right? Up to 100%, 10,000 max, right? So this provides reimbursement for the unused, non-refundable portion of your trip and additional transportation costs to return home due to covered reasons. 24-hour assistance, right? Someone to call and to speak and walk you through information or to help you set up any arrangements. So pre-existing medical condition is an injury, illness, or medical condition that exhibits symptoms or was treated on or within the 120 days prior to the purchase date of your plan. Your plan includes a waiver of the exclusion for pre-existing medical conditions if you meet the requirements listed in your plan. Otherwise, exclusion for pre-existing medical conditions will apply. So therefore, if you have a pre-existing condition and it somehow comes into play and you need to use this, it may or may not apply, right? Definitely, if you already know you have something pre-existing, call the insurance company before you even go on the trip, right? Because especially if you're aware that you have something that may, you may be a little concerned about, find out if it's covered. Because if this one doesn't cover it, there's a great chance that Travel Guard does, right? AIG Travel Guard just might. A minimum amount of trip cancellation and trip interruption coverage is $300. So that's the least that you'll potentially end up getting when you cancel a trip or something, right? Or something happens. So definitely read through this information. It's super, super important. And this is for if you're a New York resident, right? Reading that information there because it might be different. So definitely read the information and understand what's being provided, right? Important fraud warnings. So they have everything here, right? So definitely just making sure that you know what this entails in terms of COVID coverage, in terms of lost baggage and stuff like that, right? The fact that they said that if something, AIG, right, Travel Guard, if something happens where the flight is canceled due to, COVID reasons or delayed, you're not going to be reimbursed, right? If there's another company that may reimburse you, you might want to go with them instead, even if it costs a little bit more, because that disruption in your trip can play into effect, especially if you already have things booked for that first or second day that you get in and now you're late or you missed that flight or you can't go anymore, right? That's going to come into play with everything else that you're missing. And of course you would want to be reimbursed for that initial issue that kind of is creating this domino ripple effect. Now for Kayak, right? Kayak is using a different company. They're using X Cover. I've actually never seen this company before or used them before. I have seen or used the other two. So right here, right, they already have two different types of coverage. They have travel insurance, trip cancellation, baggage loss and delay more, and airline collapse cover. So one thing that I noticed that Kayak actually provides that others don't is they actually gave you two options, right? They gave you an option that was cheaper and one that costs a little more. Please don't go with the cheaper one just because it's cheaper and you think you have coverage, right? Because if it doesn't cover everything or if it doesn't cover the right thing, why even get it, right? If we're going to spend money and we're going to do this to really protect ourselves, let's go the right way about this, right? Let's select the right stuff. Let's pay for the right coverage. So right now I just selected, random flights and everything. I just wanted to populate back so we can go see, we can go see some of the coverage that they have, right? So all of these I booked. I picked flights that were about, a week, a couple of days, just so you can see what the cost is. So far the cost is roughly the same, right? The first one was about 24. Priceline's cost is about the same too. It was about $24, $25. Same thing with Kayak. So let's go to, let's just book a flexible ticket. So this is something I do. I do extensive research. I do in fact do extensive research when it comes to traveling and making sure that I'm aware of what I'm booking, what do I need, what's what's the best option and stuff like that. So some of these travel insurance things are a little bit new or different. However, just reading through the information like I'm doing with you guys is super important and making sure that you're aware what's being listed, like I've been saying. So as you can see here with Kayak, right, they're giving you a cheaper option and they're giving you another one that's a little bit more, right? So all of them were roughly about $24, right? They were no more than 30. Clearly, the more days of your trip is for, the more expensive it will be for the most part. Not by a lot, right? Not by a lot, but it will cover, it will be worth it, especially if your trip is longer. There's so many things that can still happen, even if it's just one day, honestly. But right here, right, this airline collapse cover, which is the first one that we're looking for. No, it's this one we're looking at, right? That one is only $6, but this is all it covers, right? It only covers two things, and that's barely anything, right? It only covers two things. It does not cover any of this other stuff. It does not cover if you're late, if sorry, not if you're, yeah, if you miss your flight, if you have to cancel, like it really doesn't cover anything, right? All it covers right here, if your airline becomes insolvent, if an administrator is appointed on your ticket and your booking cannot be fulfilled, right? So basically, if you get bumped off your trip or you something happens with the booking aspect of it and you're not going to be able to get on that flight, they're going to handle that. Outside of that, nothing. And that's probably like the least of your worries, right? Yeah, you get bumped, or they'll probably put you on another flight or refund you. And so even without travel insurance, you can kind of get that assistance through the airline. But all of this other stuff is what you want and need covered. So the fact that, if you're picking a cheaper option, it's not even worth it, right? If you're going to go with the $6 option, don't even take the travel insurance at all. Like just just wish for the best, right? Just pray on it, I guess. But honestly, right, go through this information, see what it covers. So with this one, right, you're getting a whole lot of things that cover, right? You have you have to cancel your trip if it's been interrupted because you're sick, injured, whatever the case is, right? If it's cut short, it's going to cover that. You incur certain out-of-pocket costs because your baggage are delayed or stolen, right? So basically, your baggage is stolen, gone, missing, whatever the case is. And you have to buy clothes, buy food, whatever, like whatever you have to buy because you don't have your baggage. They will cover it, right? Loss of limbs, sight, life, right? It will be covered. And then they actually give you the limit of how much is insured, right? For just about everything. So this is really important because think about a trip that you're going on, what you're packing inside that baggage, right? If you have designer, if you have something sentimental, something that's worth a lot of money, something that you just bought, and you lose that, of course, it's things they can be replaced. But imagine how much money is in the average baggage, right? Your best outfit that you have in your closet is in there and it costs over $1,000 and that baggage goes missing. And maybe you had like a big event or something that you've been planning for. You got all the important things in there for this event. You're going on a work trip, right? Or maybe it's a girls trip, a guys trip, and you just got all the best things because you guys have some crazy things planned out, some amazing things, and that whole bag goes missing. You're gonna wish that you had travel insurance to reimburse you for everything you lost, for what you had to rebuy, repay, for all the stress, right? It is not worth it. And a lot of the times too, now think about it. Sometimes you think like, oh, I'm just gonna do carry on. My stuff is gonna be with me. Okay, but what happens if you get sick? What happens if your stuff gets stolen at where you're staying, whether it's the Airbnb, the hotel, whatever the case is? You're gonna wish you had travel insurance to cover that. But the other thing too is sometimes you do carry on, and do remember, sometimes there's way too many people or way too many bags already being carried on, and they forcibly make you check in your bag at the gate. What happens then? You check in your bag at the gate and your bag doesn't meet you at your destination. It's happened before, right? It's happened before, and it can happen to you. So make sure that you're reading the information on the travel stuff, right? Travel protection, make sure what it covers for COVID related and that you're aware. So that way, anytime during the trip, if something arises, you already know, okay, cool. All I got to do is submit a claim. I can call someone from this specific company I purchased my insurance with, and they will be able to assist me throughout the way, whether if you need to get, tickets rebooked or, flight rebooked, hotel rebooked, whatever it is, right? You can call and get assistance and file that claim, get reimbursed, and all that great jazz. So thank you all for tuning in. I hope you learned something new. I hope that this was able to help you understand how to decipher, the travel information or to decide, right? Because what you can do is click no, and you can go to the specific website and purchase travel insurance. Also, fun big tip: if you change your dates for traveling, go ahead and make an adjustment to your travel insurance and extend it. If it becomes shorter and it goes longer, cool. Something happens in the city that you live in or you flew out and you need coverage, perfect. But if you're ever extending your trip, do not forget to extend your travel insurance. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I can't even speak at this point. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you learned something new once again. And check out my next video. I have a lot of cool and amazing fun stuff. And with travel opening back up, I am excited to share some of the new updated things that I have seen, heard, and that I think will be super useful for you.